Have you ever met someone who thought they owned the whole world just because they lived in a fancy neighborhood with an HOA? Well, let me tell you about the time one HOA Karen tried to claim ownership of my private fishing lake. She thought she could bully me, scare me, and even get the county on her side. But what she never expected was that her own HOA would be turned upside down and handed over to me. This story isn't just about a lake. It's about pride, greed, and what happens when someone goes too far trying to control what doesn't belong to them. If you've ever dealt with an HOA, a bossy neighbor, or a person who thinks rules only apply to others, then buckle up. You're about to enjoy this. But to Karen, it was something else. Karen was the president of the local HOA, the one in the new development that popped up a few years ago right next to my property. She had a reputation, always patrolling the streets, making sure every lawn was cut exactly to her standards, and sending out warning letters if a trash can was left out for more than 2 hours. She loved control. She thrived on it. And when she found out about my lake, she wanted it. The first time Karen approached me, she didn't come politely. She marched right up to me, hands on hips, sunglasses perched high on her nose like a queen surveying her kingdom. "This lake," she announced, "is part of the HOA property now. We'll need you to remove your personal items, like that fishing chair. Residents are complaining." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Lady," I said, "this lake has been in my family for over 40 years. It's private property. Your HOA doesn't own a single drop of it." Her face turned red, and she puffed up like a balloon ready to pop. "We'll see about that," she snapped. "The HOA has influence with the county. You can't just keep something like this to yourself when the community could benefit." And that was the start of it. At first, I thought she was bluffing. HOAs can be annoying, but they can't just take land. Still, a few weeks later, I got a notice in the mail. According to the county office, the HOA had filed a claim that the lake was part of their community space. They argued that since it was adjacent to their neighborhood, it should fall under their management. I was furious, but I wasn't about to roll over. I went down to the county office myself with the deed, the surveys, and even old photos of my grandfather fishing on that same lake. The clerk there looked tired, like she had seen Karen 100 times before. "Oh, her again," she muttered, flipping through my documents. "Don't worry. This is clearly your property. She can't just take it." That gave me some peace of mind. But I underestimated Karen's persistence. The HOA began sending letters every week. They demanded I open the lake for community use. They threatened fines. They even put up a sign at the entrance of their neighborhood that read, "Private HOA lake access for residents only." Imagine that, my lake, with their name on it. Neighbors I didn't even know started showing up with kayaks and fishing rods, claiming their dues gave them the right. I had to chase them off, showing them the deed, sometimes even calling the sheriff. It was exhausting. Karen, of course, loved the drama. She would show up just to smirk and say, "See? Everyone agrees it should be ours. You're outnumbered." But here's the thing about Karen. She was so busy trying to play queen of the HOA that she didn't realize she was breaking the very rules she swore to enforce. One day, I decided to dig deeper. If she wanted to play legal games, I could play too. I went down to the county records office and started looking into the HOA itself. And that's when I found something shocking. The HOA was actually in trouble. Their charter was about to expire because Karen hadn't filed the proper paperwork to keep it active. Not only that, but several residents had filed complaints about her leadership, accusing her of mismanaging funds and using HOA money for personal projects. It was like discovering the Queen's castle was built on sand. Armed with this knowledge, I decided to fight back in a new way. I wasn't just going to defend my lake. I was going to turn the tables. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in property and HOA disputes. Together, we drafted a formal complaint to the county, not only defending my ownership of the lake, but also pointing out the HOA's failures and misuse of authority. The county took it seriously because this wasn't just about a fishing lake anymore. This was about an HOA president abusing her power. Karen didn't see it coming. The next few weeks were chaos in the neighborhood. HOA meetings turned into shouting matches. Homeowners who had once followed Karen blindly were now questioning her every move. "Why are we paying dues if you can't even handle paperwork?" they shouted. One man even stood up and said, "If this lake isn't ours, then why did you tell us it was? Are you lying to us, Karen?" Karen tried to hold her ground, but the cracks were showing. She blamed me, of course. She said I was a problem, that I was selfish, that I was hurting the community. But the more she talked, the more people turned against her. And then came the moment I'll never forget. The county stepped in. I was called into a hearing where both sides could present their case. Karen showed up with stacks of fake evidence, most of it just HOA newsletters where she had claimed the lake is theirs. I showed up with the deed, legal surveys, and the lawyer by my side. The county official listened patiently, then said, "It's very clear. The lake is private property. It belongs solely to you. The HOA has no claim here." Karen exploded. She shouted. She stomped. She even accused the county of being biased. But the official wasn't done. He added, "And as for the HOA itself, there are serious concerns about its management. Until these are addressed, the county is revoking its charter." In other words, Karen's HOA wasn't just powerless. It was suspended. And that was when the real twist happened. The county official looked at me and said, "You've expressed interest in community management. Given that the HOA failed to maintain its responsibilities, you have the option to step in and reorganize it, if you wish." That's right. The county basically handed me the HOA, the same HOA that tried to steal my lake. Karen's face turned white. Her mouth fell open. She tried to protest, but no one cared anymore. Her reign was over. Now I had a choice. I could take control of the HOA and make the rules fair, or I could dissolve it entirely and free the residents from her tyranny. Either way, the power was in my hands. And all because Karen picked a fight she couldn't win. So what happened to the fishing lake? Well, it stayed exactly where it belonged, with me. And now, whenever I cast my line into the water, I do it with a smile, knowing that the queen who tried to claim my kingdom lost hers instead. But this story doesn't just end with me fishing in peace. It's a reminder to anyone who's ever been bullied, pushed around, or told they don't matter. Sometimes, the fight you didn't want becomes a victory you'll never forget. And as for Karen, let's just say she doesn't come around anymore. Backhand index pointing right. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with someone who's ever dealt with an HOA nightmare. Trust me, they'll thank you for it. Have you ever seen what happens when a bully suddenly loses all their power? It's almost shocking. One day they're shouting orders, waving their authority like a sword, and the next day, silence. That's exactly what happened to Karen after the county took her HOA away and handed me the keys. But here's the truth. Winning the lake was just the beginning. What came next was even bigger and way more satisfying. When the county officially recognized me as the new head of the HOA, I didn't even know what to say. Part of me wanted to laugh. Part of me wanted to refuse. I never wanted to be part of an HOA in the first place. I was just a guy who liked fishing on his own lake. But then I thought about it. If I walked away, someone else could take over. Maybe another mini Karen. The last thing I wanted was another power-hungry neighbor causing chaos. So I made a decision. If the county was going to give me the HOA, I'd run it, but on my terms. The very first meeting I held as the new HOA leader was unforgettable. Dozens of homeowners packed into the community hall. Some came out of curiosity. Others came out of anger. And a few came because they still believed in Karen. I stood at the front of the room, holding the microphone, and started with a simple sentence. First of all, the lake is mine. It always has been, and it always will be. That chapter is closed. You could hear whispers ripple through the crowd. Some people nodded. Others frowned. I raised my hand to quiet them. But second, I continued, this HOA is no longer going to be about bullying, threats, or fines. From now on, it's about the community, about fairness, about common sense. That's when the mood shifted. People leaned in. They wanted to hear more. I explained that I had no intention of abusing the HOA's power the way Karen did. I wasn't going to send out letters about the color of their mailboxes. I wasn't going to fine them for leaving a bike in the driveway. Instead, I promised three things. Transparency. Every dollar the HOA collected would be accounted for. No more mystery projects like Karen's fancy garden that nobody asked for. Choice. Homeowners would actually get to vote on important decisions. Imagine that democracy in an HOA. Respect. No one would be treated like a criminal just for living their life. The room erupted in applause. Some people even stood up and clapped. For the first time, I saw relief on their faces. They were free from Karen's iron grip. Of course, not everyone was happy. Karen herself was sitting in the back row, arms crossed, glaring at me like she wanted to burn a hole through my head. When the meeting ended, she stormed up to me. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You think you've won, but the people are loyal to me. They'll never follow you." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Karen, the only thing people were loyal to was fear, and now they're free." She stomped away, and that was the last time she ever set foot in an HOA meeting. Over the next few months, I started making changes. Small things at first, canceling pointless fines, giving residents a say in how their money was used, and even throwing a community barbecue to bring everyone together. The difference was night and day. Neighbors who barely spoke to each other before were now laughing, sharing food, and talking like friends. Kids rode their bikes without parents worrying about violating HOA safety rules. Lawns weren't judged like a beauty contest anymore. People started to feel like a community again, not prisoners of Karen's rule book. And the best part? Every time I walked back to my fishing lake, I felt a wave of pride, not just because I had won, but because I had turned something toxic into something better. But let me tell you something. Karen wasn't done. Even without her title, she couldn't stand being ignored. She started spreading rumors, whispering that I was only in it for the money, that I would sell the lake to developers, that I was secretly planning to dissolve the HOA and leave the neighborhood in ruins. At first, I ignored her. But then, one night, I got a call from a neighbor. "Hey, you need to know this," he said. "Karen's trying to start a shadow HOA. She's holding private meetings in her garage, telling people you're illegitimate." I couldn't believe it. A shadow HOA? Who even thinks of that? I decided to confront the problem head-on. At the next official meeting, I addressed it in front of everyone. "I've heard some rumors," I said. "Some of you may have been told that I'm not really in charge, or that I'm planning to betray this community. Let me be clear, none of that is true. But don't just take my word for it. Take the county's." I held up the official documents, stamped and signed, proving that I was a recognized leader. Then I added, "And unlike the past leadership, everything I do is open to you. If you ever think I'm lying, check the records." Transparency means nothing is hidden. The room went silent. Then, slowly, people started clapping. Not polite claps, real, genuine applause. That was the moment Karen's last grip on power slipped away. From then on, Karen became a ghost in the neighborhood. People stopped listening to her. Some even avoided her altogether. Without her army of followers, she was just another resident with too much time on her hands. And me? I kept doing what I had promised. I fixed things that were broken. I ended unfair fines. I turned the HOA into something people didn't hate anymore. But here's the twist. After a year, when everything was running smoothly, I called one final meeting. "Friends," I said, standing in front of them, "I never wanted this position. I took it because I didn't want Karen or anyone like her to ruin your lives. But now that the HOA is stable, I think it's time for me to step back. You deserve to choose your own leader." The room gasped. Some begged me to stay. Others nodded, understanding. But I insisted. "This HOA isn't mine. It's yours. And you don't need me to run it anymore." We held an election right there. Neighbors nominated candidates, cast their votes, and chose someone they trusted. It was fair, it was open, and it was everything Karen's rule had never been. As for me, I happily stepped aside. That night, I walked back to my fishing lake. The water was calm, reflecting the stars above. I cast my line into the dark and felt a deep sense of peace. Karen tried to steal my lake. She tried to control me. She tried to use power as a weapon. But in the end, her greed destroyed her and my patience gave me victory. I didn't just keep my lake. I changed an entire neighborhood. So here's the lesson. Bullies may seem powerful, but their strength only lasts as long as people let them lead. The moment you stand up, the moment you fight back with truth and persistence, the whole game changes. If you're ever facing someone like Karen, whether it's an HOA president, a boss, or just a pushy neighbor, remember this. You have more power than you think. Sometimes, all it takes is one person saying enough to turn everything around. Backhand index pointing right if this story inspired you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment if you've ever dealt with a Karen in your life. I'd love to hear your stories. And who knows, your story might be the next one I tell.